I'm Admiral Bill Kime. This video is an overview of some of the new commercial fishing vessel safety regulations. It's also intended to acquaint you with the voluntary dockside examination and at-sea boarding programs which were developed to implement and enforce the new regulations. The goal of these programs is to save lives in vessels, preventive SAR, so to speak. These programs have been integrated with our law enforcement, search and rescue, and marine safety missions. Whatever your role, I want to thank you for your commitment to improving safety in this very important but potentially very dangerous occupation. All of us involved in this program are truly partners in safety with the men and women of the fishing industry. Thank you and keep up the good work.
One of this nation's most difficult occupations is commercial fishing. It's also one of the most dangerous. Every 3 to 4 days, another fisherman loses his or her life. More than 250 vessels a year are lost as well.
So in 1988, Congress passed the Commercial Fishing Vessel Safety Act, the first comprehensive regulations designed specifically for the fishing industry. Hello, I'm Lynn Mountcastle, the Commercial Fishing Vessel Safety Coordinator with the 7th Coast Guard District.
And I'm Bill Travis, a boarding officer with the Cutter Metomkin. We're here to talk with you today about the requirements that you'll need to know when you're doing a voluntary dockside examination, as well as those you need to know when you're doing a routine boarding on a commercial fishing vessel.
The goal of the Fishing Vessel Safety Program is to eliminate the number of these fatalities and vessel losses. At first glance, these regulations, 46 CFR Part 28, are pretty complicated, but they can be broken down. The easiest way to understand the parts that you will work with the most is to know that one major section applies to all vessels, and another applies to documented vessels that operate outside the boundary line or with more than 16 people on board.
Federal regulations can be intimidating, but they've been simplified in this plain language pamphlet that's available both to you and to the general public. The pamphlet contains a checklist of the safety regulations and other requirements that a commercial fishing vessel needs to meet. Remember, this pamphlet applies only to uninspected commercial fishing vessels, tenders, and processors, not small boats, charter boats, or inspected fishing vessels.
You can use it as a job aid during your boardings with the 4100 or during a dockside exam. Dockside exams are different than boardings. They're voluntary, like the auxiliary courtesy marine exam for recreational boats. The fisherman has asked you to be on his vessel.
He's done this for several reasons. First, it's comprehensive. He'll know if his vessel is in compliance or if he needs to make changes. He's asked you to help him understand the regs, so it's not going to result in any violations. It's convenient for him, we're not keeping him from fishing, and it's free.
So let's walk through a typical dockside exam and take a look at what's required to comply with the regs. Again, routine law enforcement boardings aren't intended to be as comprehensive as dockside exams.
How y'all doing?
Hey, how you doing, Lieutenant Mount?
After you're invited on board and you've introduced yourself, you'll need to find out if the vessel is documented or registered, the length of the vessel, where the vessel operates, and the maximum number of people who work aboard.
Then, using your pamphlet or an examination checklist, or both, you can begin to look at the equipment on board. You'll notice first thing that the checklist follows the same format as the 4100 that you use on LE boardings. So, let's start with the equipment found on all vessels. I think what we'll do now is take a look at those life jackets and move on through.
All vessels will have one Coast Guard approved life jacket or immersion suit for everyone on board. The law says they have to be easily accessible, so you have to make the call on whether or not they are. Immersion suits are required for each person working in cold waters. Call your MSO for guidance in your specific area.
All jackets have to be marked with the name of the vessel or the person wearing it, along with retroreflective tape, front and back, and if the vessel is operating on ocean, coastwise, or on the Great Lakes, they have to have a Coast Guard approved PFD light. Make sure the batteries are in good shape and that the chemical lights haven't expired. You might tell the master to put clear tape around these labels so the dates won't rub off.
Not all commercial fishing vessels have to have Type 1 jackets, only those 40 feet or longer. If it's less than 40 feet, you can go with a Type 2, 3, 5, or an immersion suit.
All right, Captain, I'd like to look at that ring buoy. You wouldn't mind taking it out of the bracket. Ring buoys. All vessels 26 feet or more are required to have them. The number they need depends on the length of the vessel, so check your pamphlet. The pamphlet will also tell you how much line they have to have attached. And like PFDs, they have to have retroreflective tape and the name of the vessel. Just tilt it up. Okay.
Survival craft requirements for commercial fishing vessels are very specific. Look at your pamphlet for details. If you have any questions, again, your local MSO is the best source of information. Regardless of the specific type, all life rafts should be installed in a carefully selected location, which allows the raft to float free from the vessel. Operating instructions for the raft should be displayed nearby, and all crew members need to know how it operates. Check the container and hydrostatic release to make sure it's had its annual service.
Life floats and buoyant apparatus are usually found on smaller boats. They also need to be placed topside where they can float free. Unfortunately, a good float-free location also exposes the gear to the elements, so make sure the lifeline, pendants, painter, and the Coast Guard-approved floating light are in working order. And you guessed it, they have to have the name of the vessel and retroreflective tape.
All right. Got smoke. Visual distress signals are required on all commercial fishing vessels, but the type they have to have depends on how far offshore they work. Generally, commercial fishing vessels operating less than 3 miles off the coast may use the same distress signals as recreational vessels. This includes both day and night signals. Day signals can be either 1 distress flag or 3 Coast Guard approved smoke signals. Night signals can be either 1 electric distress light or 3 Coast Guard approved flares. If the vessel operates beyond 3 miles, then it must have 3 Coast Guard approved parachute flares, 6 hand flares, and 3 smoke signals. Be careful, if a vessel operates beyond 50 miles, the approval numbers change. The correct numbers are listed in the pamphlet. All flares have expiration dates that must be checked too.
Until March 10, 1994, 406 MHz satellite emergency position indicating radio beacons, or EPIRBs, are required on commercial fishing vessels over 36 feet in length, which operate beyond 3 miles, and that have a galley or berthing area. A galley is a space that provides for extended storage and preparation of food. That doesn't mean an ice chest and propane stove. A berthing area is a space with installed bunks. After March 10, 94, all fishing vessels operating beyond 3 miles must have an EPIRB. There are several options. By 98, all EPIRBs must be 406 MHz. Each satellite EPIRB must be registered because it transmits the signal unique to that vessel when activated.
Fire extinguishers. All commercial fishing vessels must have them, but again, depending on the size of the vessel and its spaces, refer to the regs or your pamphlet to see specifically what type that boat will need. But each type of portable fire extinguisher will have to be Coast Guard approved, charged, and in good general condition.
Like we said before, these regulations apply to all uninspected commercial fishing vessels, and the Dockside Exam is the absolute best place to ensure compliance.
But if you're doing a boarding underway, 4 of these categories, PFDs and immersion suits, visual distress signals, fire extinguishers, and EPIRBs, should be your major concern. Because when all hell breaks loose out there, these are the items that'll give that fisherman his best shot at survival.
And they'll give us our best shot at finding him.
Some other items are required on all commercial fishing vessels that aren't directly related to safety. All vessels with installed toilet facilities must have an operable Coast Guard certified marine sanitation device or a holding tank with a Y valve that must be secured while the vessel is operating in navigable waters. There are no alternatives. You can't just lock the head door and walk away from it.
All vessels are required to have the ability to display appropriate day shapes or nav lights for their size and operations. And all commercial fishing vessels, regardless of size, are now required to have an injury placard in addition to the previously required placards. Okay, that's what's required on all uninspected commercial fishing vessels. When you look at a documented vessel which operates beyond the boundary line, or a documented vessel that carries more than 16 persons, a few other requirements apply.
If you don't know the boundary line for your area, check 46 Code of Federal Regulations Part 7. Some of the requirements will be phased in, like those for life rafts. Others will only apply to vessels beyond a certain length. The pamphlet will show you specifics for each type of vessel.
A fireman's outfit and self-contained breathing apparatus, first aid equipment and training, including a first aid manual,
Guards, hand covers, or railings in the way of hazardous machinery, and insulation from exhaust pipes to prevent burns. Navigational information including charts, a current coast pilot, a light list, and tide and current tables. An operable magnetic steering compass with a compass deviation table. Anchors with chains, cables, or ropes. A radar reflector for non-metallic hull vessels unless it's rigged with gear that can provide a radar signature at 6 miles.
Each vessel must be equipped with a VHF. Some require more as they go farther offshore. All communications equipment, including the EPIRB, must be listed on the vessel's FCC certificate. Audible and visual high water alarms are required on vessels 36 feet or more. A bilge pump capable of dewatering any watertight compartment. An electronic fixing device for vessels 79 feet or more. Posted emergency instructions with training and drills to keep the crew's skill levels current.
Now you're familiar with the basic requirements. When a dockside exam is successfully completed, this decal is awarded to the owner. It should be affixed to a forward starboard window. The decal means a lot. It says that this vessel has been thoroughly examined and has met all applicable federal requirements.
Unfortunately, there are vessels that are unsafe. Those that are already at the dock should be advised to remain there until the hazards are corrected. In some cases, a captain of the port order is justified. Underway, a vessel with especially hazardous conditions should be terminated. Remember, the commercial fishing vessel safety decal is earned. A lot of hard work and cooperation with the Coast Guard went into its being there.
These voluntary dockside exams are the backbone of the commercial fishing vessel safety program. They'll not only make for a safer fleet, but they also make a boarding officer's job easier, and they'll reduce our overall SAR caseload. And they make our relationship with the public that much stronger.
And whether you board a vessel or talk to a fisherman with a question, you represent the entire Coast Guard. Your attitude and professionalism makes all the difference.